Edhil is one of the most beautiful and complex cities to grace Middle-earth. Although technically a fortress, the designs in the Noldor quickly outgrew the original intentions. Situated just downriver from the confluence of the Saranen and the Gladden rivers, Edhil was built on a bluff of granite. It looks westward over a long swell in the Gladium over a small lake called by the Noldor the Pool of Rest. This lake was originally formed by a natural dam of rock further west, later enhanced by Noldorian engineers. Guarding the northwest edge of the city bluff is a small, swift river called the Tumbling Laughter, which drains off the runoff from the rolling hills north of the city. As one approaches the city from the west along the Tharbad Road, the nearby bank of the Gadram begins increasingly steep and rocky. At times the river is swift, even foamy. At others it widens and moves sluggishly. About 30 miles west of Ostin, Adel, twin rectangular obelisks 30 feet tall, flanked away. And inscribed on the interface of each are the words in Westron and Sendron, 10 leagues east lie the fortress of the Eldar. May the Valor watch over your journey. And below, in smaller fine letters of Ithian, is the mithril alloy, which can only be seen under stars and moonlight, are the words in Quenya, the Brotherhood of the Jewelsmiths bid welcome to our kindred. Beyond these impressive markers, the road is wide and paved with smooth white flags fitted skillfully together. The road climbs along the bank, gracefully sloping upward after the river widens to become the Astillan. The gleaming city of marble might be seen nearly a league away. The copper roofs of the three towers and the bronze dome of the council hall are often visible in the afternoon sun. Nearing the city, now on a road from the precious 100 feet above the river, the traveler first comes upon two massive marble planters, 20 feet square, 10 feet high. Flourishing in each is a large holly tree, the symbol of Aragon. The prow of Ostin Edel looms to the east, 400 feet tall. Beyond the holly trees lie a large track, game courts, and an amphitheater. The Noldor frequently test their physical prowess in competition and games and enjoy dramatic presentations of every variety. Over the graceful stone bridge, one approaches the northern section of the town, much larger or much lower than the main section of the city. Past a number of hedged triangular gardens, the traveler at last arrives to the north gate, where mail-clad wardens will politely check a merchant's business and make any necessary arrangements for the stabling of horses, carts, etc. A dizzying ride in one of the amazing Ortani or long stair climb for the squeamish. Later one rides to the beautiful fortress city of the Eldar. The overall plan. It is interesting to note that the unusual overall design of this fortress city, which holds many of the insights into the psychology of the Eldar, first and most obvious, like many structures built by the Noldor, is based on a tripartite geometry of primarily equilateral triangles. The plan is more complex by far, however, for triangular grids of different orientations are overlaid and the unusual scheme is superimposed against a more customary, for mortals at least, orthogonal grid, creating a seemingly random net of chaotic roads, avenues, and alleys. Nothing is less sophisticated would be enough for the Noldar, however, to prevent their becoming bored with a more unorthodox plan. Another more visibly apparent aspect of the city is its resemblance to a great ship. Built upon a carved bluff of rock, to the east and west ends are higher, like the forecastle and stern of a sailing craft. Certainly, it is no coincidence that the exiled Nodar have built their new Hapo in Middle Earth in the form of a huge ship overlooking a long westward reaching lake. There are even three plazas set in line, and in the center of each rises a tall, slender, mast-like bell tower. The Noldar may voice denial of any desire to return to the blessed realm of Amun, but their works speak even louder of a longing for the undying lands. The stone bluffs upon which the city is constructed is solid granite. Elven masons carved and chiseled this huge mass to meet their design. Forming the wastage into huge blocks, they fashioned the high walls of the city and faced the entire mass with a fine, glittering white pentalic marble. During the day, Austin Adele glows with pure light. The setting sun illuminates it in a deep amber. Within the city's high, graceful walls can be found a multitude of building materials and designs. Somehow, though, the result resembles not chaos, but a fine gallery of differing styles. Transitions are buffered by many parks, gardens, and plazas scattered throughout the city. A variety of marbles of different shades and textures are used, as well as granite and porphyry. Other more fragile stones, such as agates, chalcedony, travertine, are utilized for decorative trim and facings. The average structure within the city is 2 to 3 stories high, although few boast 4 levels. The Noldor are master architects, and the engineers are as well as artists, and because of their superior skill, are able to overcome many of the mundane structural obstacles of the building. As a result, designs are daring. Balconies, cantilevers, wide spans are frequently used. Supports are slender and graceful, leaving a space available for many large windows, and the glass workers of Ostinetto have no equal elsewhere. Multi-pane stained glasses are used everywhere in elegant designs and patterns. Beautiful crystal lamps are everywhere at night, lighting the streets and the gardens and the buildings with a warm glow. The city has an extensive plumbing and sewage system. Virtually every building has running water and complete sanitary facilities. The streets are wide and all paved with marble, skillfully designed to be quickly drain rainwater. There are no horses within the city. Indeed, is no way for them to get inside. Large stables are available at both east and north gates to house the mounts of travelers and the city inhabitants. Ost and Edel is partitioned into several districts, divided both by levels and by inner marble walls. These districts are generally called the Telleran, seeing Telleran, or flat sections of the grid. They are connected by stone stairways and in some cases by sophisticated lifts, the Ortani, with gateways to the higher levels guarded by wardens and large steel gates. The westernmost section, or the Western Watch, is some 400 feet above the river and consists of the West Garden, the small palace at Galadriel and Selborne, the council hall. The outer walls of this section are along the garden side are only 5 feet tall, allowing the inhabitants to see outwards. Note the two flanking areas of the northern one holding the council hall and the southern one enclosing the city palace of Selborne and Galadriel. The walls of the southern enclosure slope downwards, allowing a wide view from the house. Just below the Tinrin is the Ardahelen, or otherwise High City, set in 300 feet above the water with 15-foot high walls. Here there are found the residences of most of the prominent Noldor, as well as the more elite shops and inns. The center of Ostenedel is at 200 feet above the waterline with 20-foot walls. It is the middle city, or the Medherlen. This section is given over to mostly completely commercial areas and storage. This southernmost region is adjacent to the city's harbor, the Polad, or fenced haven. Stepping down to the north of the city is the Penahiriar, or the misty steps downward, two shelves which follow the descending granite bluffs towards the Lanarth River. These are so named because they are considerably lower than even the middle city, and on cool mornings the entire section is completely shrouded in mist, while the main city seems even more like a great ship sailing on a foggy sea. Further east is the other residential section of the city, the Galadenharn, or Wooded City. Again, 300 feet above the water, here live most of the Sindar, Sylvan, and the Feutilari elves who chose to reside within Aust and Edel. This section has a different character than the middle city, bearing a larger number of trees and generally more rustic atmosphere. Intruding into the northern portion of this section is the High Citadel, which serves as the home of the guard of the city and a last place of retreat in times of danger. Finally, the furthest section is dominated by another garden and a small tower called the East Watch. The lands around Ostenedel. Ergen proper is all the lands north of the Gladron and south of the Mithril Brunnen. Thus, the Ostenel is situated on the southern border of the realm. Elven settlements are almost exclusively north of the River Gladden. The triangle between the Cernan and the Gladden is very sparsely inhabited except by a few rustic Sylvan shepherds. By far the majority of the Noldor either live in the city proper or in the rolling hills to the immediate north. Many of the more prominent families have houses both in the city and in the country. In addition to the estates, most of the land for many miles around Ostenadel is cultivated. The fields partitioned into large triangular tracts. Chief among the nearby crops are wheat, barley, and grapes. The wines of Aragon are the finest in Middle Earth. Even the vintages of Dorwinen in the Third Age cannot be compared with the drink with Aragon's vineyards. Sites within the city. A few sites within the walls of Osnell deserve special note. Selborne and Gladriel's house, built of pale brown travertine marble with its almost wood grain like bands. The trim of this small but regal house is dark cherry stained to almost black. The house is constructed on the side of a granite bluff, so the terraces and all rooms look westward. Interior furnishings tend to be simple but elegant, stressing organic comforts. When Gladriel leaves in 1375, they remove most of their possessions to their country house, where Selborne retires. The city's house is closed and never re-inhabited. Celbrimber's house. Continuing the triangular motif of the city, the design for which Celbrimber was primarily responsible, his house is isolated on a small rocky outcrop, connected to the city by a single bridge. The villa is palatial, which includes a large library, a laboratory, and 3 vaults. There's also a secret passage under the river connecting this house to the Myrtithron, halls of the silver or the smiths. The house is constructed primarily of gray-blue azurite trimmed with the railings and frames of purple porphyry. The roof is very resilient tiles painted and glazed to match the trim. At night, blue-tinted lanterns are lit along the perimeter walls, giving the villa an unusually luminous blue appearance. Although Celbrimber did not actually make the 3 rings here, much of his preliminary research is done in this house. Unlike most of the Noldor, who have many servants, Celbrimber has only one, Denel, otherwise devoted to the smith. A Noldor of the house of Fingolfin, Denel is a characteristic blonde hair, is tall and lean, and is indeed the master smith's dedicated servant. His duties are made easier by the plethora of strange and magical devices to fill Ostenladan. Both Celbrimber and Denel have keys to all the doors in the house except the vaults, which only the master smith has keys. All windows in the house are of nearly unbreakable high glass, and though most can be opened, they all have very strong locks, very hard to pick from the outside. The difficulty is not due to the lock's sophistication so much as the fact that there are no exposed mechanisms on the outside. Ostenladen is nearly intact through the Third Age, mainly because of the brunt of Sauron's wrath. The Dark Lord insisted on finding Celbrimber defending the gates of the Medrathoron. The house is also built from extremely durable materials, as can be seen from the descriptions below as special defenses. As we note that his kitchen is filled with, as an example of the house in general, the kitchen is filled with a variety of strange objects, most of them magical and all of them designed to aid in food preparation. Celbrimber's amusement was creating minor items of power for mundane users are clearly revealed, as in the pantry, a number of cabinets are magically contained a cool temperature to keep food from spoiling. Agnor's house, or Agner's house. Seemingly tied to the earth as one of the most rustic of the great houses in Ostenel is Agnor's. Perhaps design was inspired in part by his beautiful Sindarin wife Seluma, who lived many years in Menegroth, the cavern citadel of Doriath. All beneath one sheltering roof, the house spreads out from the central hearth. The fireplace and all exterior walls are fashioned from rough-cut stones of earthen hue. Richly stained paneling and trim provide a feel of warmth, as do woven carpets in oranges, reds, and yellows. Agnor's house is unpretentious and welcoming, an accurate extension of its master, for his home is often the gathering place of many elves seeking fellowship, a song, a glass of wine, and talks of projects to come. Anantar's house. Soon after arrival, Anatar was granted a place of his own upon which to build a house. The design was unlike any other in Osten Edhil, being both more severe and more harshly symmetrical than any other of the city. It resembles more a mausoleum of the dead Edain than a home for the living. The Eldar who deal with the Lord of Gifts choose either not to notice or simply disregard any criticism as close-mindedness. The exterior of the house is faced in black marble through which runs red gold veins. The central dome itself is a polished gold on the outside and a luminous pearl finish on the inside, where an Anatar greets his guests. The interior furnishings are mostly hard and smooth, polished marble walls and floors, unupholstered furniture of rare wirewood from the far north. All of the doors and window frames, what few windows there are black metal with a dull luster. The window panes are of high glass, almost unbreakable, and do not open. A secret portal leads down to a foul altar. The bell towers. All three of these towers, named the Mendolini lofting towers of song, are essentially the same in design, no more than a hollow pillar of the white marble, with a steep spiral stair twisting through the central core of a hexagonal platform at the top. This lookout is 15 feet across and fully enclosed. Marble walls rise to 3 feet. Framed windows fill the remainder of the gap to 10 feet above the high ceiling. Although an insulated ceiling is a small trapdoor leading to the bell room where hung a set of bells, the bell ropes also hang down in a row along a portion of the room perimeter. This upper chamber is open to the outdoors, so the bell's peals can be clearly heard. The central tower is taller and slightly larger in circumference than the neighbors and sports in Ortan, one of the sophisticated counterbalance lifts allowing quicker access to the lookout. It also has a spiral stair which wraps around the Ortan shaft. The towers are capped by conical roofs sheathed in polished copper. Each room tower has a door, all facing west, which opens out onto a 3-foot wide railed walkway ringing the room. Inside each is a desk, a chair, writing tools, a lantern, and a case containing 3 telescopes of different power and size for use by the lookouts. Also set on a pedestal in the center of the room is a large magical lamp fixed in a lens system. These are lit every night and slowly turn, providing guides for any river or lake travelers. The east and west towers rise 150 feet above the surrounding plazas. The central tower is a dizzying 300 feet tall, thus rising 100 feet higher than its neighbors due to the different city levels, and 500 feet above the river. The High Citadel. The tallest part of the city, the High Citadel, is built on a solid granite base 400 feet tall, delved with many passages and halls, and surrounded by thick walls 50 feet high. The citadel is sheathed not in white marble, but coarsely finished dark granite, a curiously brooding presence penetrating in otherwise fair lanes of Ostenel. Even in its geometry is different, though its walls cast reflections into parallel streets far into the middle city. Perhaps this is a reminder from the sometimes haughty Noldor to themselves. Evil is not dead in Middle-earth, and even the mighty Eldar cannot afford to live here without fortification. Between the thick walls is a wide open space filled with grassy areas, trees, and airy quarters for the city guard who reside here. Underground are vast mansions, armories, and halls, large enough to store many tons of food and house the entire city in times of emergency. Even this was not enough to stop the power of the Dark Lord in his wrath, however. The parks. The West Garden is covered by green lawn beneath populars, birches. This westernmost tip of the city affords a breathtaking view over the lake for many miles. Numerous carefully tended flowers bloom here year-round, as well as sorrel, athis, and other healing herbs. Many winding paths lead through the hedges to sheltered clearings, each with a marbled bench for rest and contemplation. The East Garden. The 2 gardens here contain a variety of trees, including a large beech. Each is a small fountain surrounded by bench. The Ortani. These devices, called Ortani, or to lift up, are no less than elevators, which are though manually operated, are cleverly designed and operate with a smooth efficiency. Although there are not many of these machines which are placed where a great height is spanned or cargo is moved. 3 are located adjacent to the docks, 1 in the central tower, and 2 at each of the city gates. The last and undoubtedly most beautiful one is built against the wall behind Galadriel and Celeborn's house, connecting their enclosure to the upper city. Although relatively short at 65 feet, it is an elegant glass-enclosed carriage clinging to the white marble wall. At night it is lit with many lamps, looking like a strange, huge crystal and gold lantern as it glides up skyward. These lifts are operated by counterweights and other complex mechanisms which act to balance the weight of the passengers. Controlled externally by an operator, they run on steel tracks supported by several cables. All can be locked at the top and disabled should the city be attacked. Other locations of interest. Following is a list of other prominent sites in the fortress, followed by a brief description notes. And we're not going to go through every bit of them, but you got in the High City, the Council Hall, the Library, the Ventar, the Herbalist, the Baker, the Fountain Baths, the Inn called the Vinglitz Quay, the Glass Blower, the Astrologer, the Healer, the Tavern called the Tangled Vine, the Scribe. In the middle city of the Common Baths, the Central Market, the Harbor, the Shipwright, the Inn called the Sweet Rest, the Brewer, a tavern called the Bottomless Mug, Herbalist, another healer, the theater, a tavern called Treehouse, Eastgate, and the stables. The Seer and Northgate stables. And in the wooded city, the herb baths, the herbalist, the healer, blah, blah, blah. The estates outside the city include Selborne and Gladriel's Villa as an example. Telpinera, the house on the hill with silver trees, so named for the many silver birches that surround this secluded retreat, is an elegant yet unpretentious mansion for the Noldorian queen and her husband. Roofs with white eaves give the house a long, low profile, and the rough-hewn walk of the walls is an uncharacteristic of Noldor architecture. The place is almost sylvan in character and perhaps foreshadows Gladriel's disenchantment with the deep elven love of high-style design. Located 50 miles north-northeast of Ostinetto, as a crow flies, or nearly 100 miles by road, Telpinera faces south, overlooking a confluence of streams to the west. It is surrounded by hundreds of acres of forest dotted with small vineyards and fields, all tended by a resident contingent of Sylvan elves. The house itself, while not really fortified, is protected by a steep hill on the south and west, dense wood constantly patrolled to the north and east. A long winding drive enters from the south, passes through a garden courtyard, and departs through a gate in the eastern end. Gladriel and Selborne travel back and forth between here and Ostinetto, either by horse-drawn carriage or simply on horseback. The estate of Carnel de Venter. Carnel was a Noldor and one of the original founders of Aragon. He has lived in Amon, so within him is the skill to understanding of living things possessed by few. It is no surprise that his vines thrive, produce the best wines in the valley. Two in particular, famous from Linden to the mouths of the Anduin. Camir, or Sparkling Red, is a deep red Cabernet, and Ulysse, the Sweet Draught, Chardonnay. The estate mansion rests on a low hill amidst the vineyards, with the winery and associated buildings clustered nearby. Carnel was grieved by his oldest son, J.R.R, decided to join the Gwen Mirrodin and become a smith. Although it was a prestigious profession, Carnel would have preferred to have his son work in the winery. Instead, Carnel continues to take an active part in the operations, as well as being a councilman in Ostinetto, aided by his daughter, Lathen, or Misty Eyes, and the three Sylvan elves who oversee several dozen Sylvan workers. No one could ask for better workers, tireless elves who love nothing more than gardening in the grandest sense. The mansion is about 30 miles northeast of Ostinel and rests on the edge of a great bluff and is surrounded by thousands of acres of vineyards. The house is of frame and stucco, standing on a firm foundation of stone. The only reason it survived into the Third Age, however, is that it was converted into a small monastery by a little-known cult of monks around the Second Age, 1800. The halls of the Mirrodin. The Miradran Trod is undoubtedly the most unusual and interesting of all the Noldarian structures in Aragon. Designed by Solbrimber, it is a strange marble architecture containing a love for nature with the lust to conquer the mysteries of science as elves know it. The halls of the Gwynwith Meridan proper are mostly above ground, and are discussed in the text immediately following. The actual forges are deep beneath the house, access gained through the portal of the forge. Three triangular buildings, each 60 feet high, anchor the complex and serve as a starting point for the unleashed ripples to follow. Gazebos, step balconies, verandas, fountains, and enclosed courts. To the north, standing guard over the entrance stairway, is a 90-foot bell tower. Notes the altitude given to the color map on the main level. All the outer walls are complex and faced in a road of such grite, a smooth marble-like rock, primarily white with subtle bands of pink and red. My apologies for my inability to pronounce half this stuff properly. The main levels, a long white stairway of pure white marble switches back, passing beneath the looming sentinel of the bell tower before opening into the north court. The north court is a large area about 25 feet above ground. It's covered by short springing grass, as are all the courts, and planted with a number of ornamental trees and flowers. In the south corner splashes a stepped fountain. A wide stair of marble leads up 5 feet to the main gate. The bell tower stands watch over the complex. The tall watchtower, faced in pure blue azurite, can only be entered from the west court. Tall windows flank 3 doors, locked and extremely hard to pick. All smiths and guards have keys. The steep stairways open to the entry with a stair to the northwest, but stands about 15 feet above it. The spaces between the car pillars are too narrow for anyone to slip through anyway. High up in the tower is a small lookout room, and above the bell is the bell chamber where hang 9 beautiful bells. They are operated via ropes which hang down into the lookout room. The hours are rung on these bells as well as an occasional tune. The gates of fine wrought mithril alloy guard the entrance to the smith halls. Behind the doors, a reinforced metal can be rolled shut on tracks bolted into place. These doors are almost always open, however. Even the gates usually are swung wide on their hinges, and 2 mail-clad sentinels stand watch. At night, the gates are shut, though locked and sheer folly to open. All smiths and the sentinels on watch have keys. Within the structure is much more than a gatehouse. This building house is home for the sentinels, and a gallery works by the smiths. The central enclave. Dominating this wide marble floored plaza's large multi-level fountain, benches, and small tables are scattered about for the smiths, apprentices, and guests to make themselves comfortable. Sheltered by the trees of the courts and 3 main buildings, this enclave is very serene and quiet, the only sounds being the splash of water and the whisper of wind through the leaves. The West Court. A few steps above the central enclave, this court boasts a miniature orchard, trees, the trees bearing a variety of delicious fruits. At the north corner of the court is the bell tower entrance. The East Court. A smaller court, this one contains a few more private conversation spots nestled between trees and manicured shrubbery. The gazebo. Each of these triangular structures is open except for a gently peaked roof of white wood. Some do sport trellises in which are thriving flowering vines. All contain comfortable chairs and tables. We have the guest house, the portal to the forge. The main floor to the portal is the entire main level of the structure is a gallery filled with beautiful sculpture and items of great beauty set in display cases. The floor and walls are faced in pure white marble, and the room is lit by tall windows. The great stairways twist up through the center of the high singling chamber, leading upward to the council hall of the master smiths. In the center of the stair is a large triangular glass-walled lift, an ortani. The door in the side lift allows entry except when locked. Normally, there is an attendant on duty. The lift can carry its occupants 100 feet underground into the forge complex. The South Court. Another large open space overlooking the fields west of Ostenadel, the Moria Road, and the surrounding. The Forges. The lower level, the metal halls. This lower level actually has 2 access points, 3 glass-walled artani, and a river entrance from the surrounding. This latter way is well guarded and actually not commonly known. The Eldar used it in their trade with the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, carrying ores from the great mine downriver into the very vaults of the halls. The upper level, or the jewel halls, can only be reached by 3 glass-walled lifts unless one counts the service lift, which connects the glass halls with the river quay below. The second way is only used to transport supplies, however, as the lift is hidden in the floor of the glass hall's antechamber. And one of the things that, pending the destruction of the city, this particular location has always been a great interest to me both as a connoisseur of Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien's works, and a lover of Middle-earth role-playing game system. And the idea that what must the greater places that the ancient elves had created and past in detail would have been like from a human's perspective. And within Middle Earth, especially within the Second Age, leading to the Third Age, that this would be the epitaph of Elvish architecture and scientific magical confluence, and of the everything that we have, everything that we know about this particular place makes it a magical and truly mythical location in for anybody in the Third Age to think of. The fact that we don't see it in the books or the movies, but it's implied that much more than just a few stones actually survive. Number of structures and private estates and pieces of the greater city endured into the Third Age and into the Fourth Age, in part because they were avoided by later people, and or because they were isolated just enough. This idea of high architecture and high design really appeals to me in many aspects. We see some of this in Minas Tirith and how the grand city was constructed back when the Gondorians when the Nurmurians came to the shores and first settled and brought their vast repertoire of knowledge and skills, much of which they are based on a foundation knowledge gained from the elves, and in particular the Noldor. So one of the reasons I wanted to do this one is a separate piece. So I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, apologize for my less than stellar ability to pronounce things and my moderately weak oratory skills. Till next time, this is Rick, and I hope you enjoyed.